Alright, welcome back. So, back on the, I don't even know what to call this thing yet. Peanut M&M's build, speed build, clowning on people build, just not sure. But the name will come to us soon, I'm sure of it. But we're going to go ahead and get the ESC mounted up in here. I've got all my soldering stuff out, my connectors out. It's time to do some soldering, which is usually the part most people dread. I did start to install the fan. And I'm also going to use one of Game Changer's regulators on this build because I want to see with this kind of power on 8S, are we going to blow this regulator? Is it going to handle it? Is it going to regulate what I need it to regulate? And this will be the final test for this regulator because this is the last one I have. Game Changer's got a bunch ready. They won't look like this. They look a little bit different. But we're getting closer to a final product on this. He's been working hard, making a bunch of these things. He does have a bunch of them that he's working on. I shouldn't say a bunch. He's got a few of them that he's working on because we know up until 6S this is working good. Now I need to make sure that 8S, it's going to handle the power. And of course, let's get an ESC that's really going to put out some power. And that's why, hence the whole build. I could have thrown it in my speed car or Thunder truck, but I needed to refresh this one anyway. And with Raw's coming out with these drive shafts, I love the way that the rear works. The front, I'm still not happy with it. I can't remove the brace. I am going to show you what happens when you remove the brace and what the chassis does, especially when this upper brace isn't on here. Because when I pop this off, I really have to bend it back down to get it back on. Now, if I had the upper brace on here, that would put a lot of tension on the upper brace. And if you ever had an infraction and you pull your spool in and out constantly and you're changing gears constantly, I flip up this upper brace all the time to do repairs. And to fight to get this brace on and off and to put all the pressure on this plastic point and this plastic point is too much for me. I love the support braces. Worst case is I'll run his rear drive shaft and I'll run a factory front because the front, we really don't have any issues with it. It's just the rear that's having an issue. So, and I'm still going to get the benefit from the drive shafts. So, but I'm going to continue to grind on this brace a little bit more. It does clear. I can't fit a paper through it, which means I don't have enough clearance for movement. And with the style ends that are on this, you do get a little movement on the drive shaft. So I got to get some more clearancing on this. I'm just tired of grinding. I grinded on this thing for an hour and a half. And there's pretty much no brace left. I did grab a plastic one and try to fit it in here as well. When you flip this mount, it moves that front drive shaft over even more. In the stock location, like Ross says, it's very little shaving that you have to do, but you do have to shave the rear and the front. Where when you flip the mount, it moves everything over just a smidge, which clears the back, and then the front hits really bad. So that's where I'm at with the drive shafts, but I'm going to get this in, get it all soldered up. I'm going to try to make this, this is video number 5. This should be the last of the videos on this. Now I do have a bunch of upgrades coming for this, and as they come in, I will put them on. Because I do have a whole motor mount system coming. I do have another drive shaft and spool system coming because this does have a differential in it, and I'm going to put a spool in it. But I do have a spool somewhere, and I have a center diff spool, and I have a front diff spool for EMP. And I have it somewhere. I lost it, but I have them somewhere. So I will be doing those as well because I like to lock the front differential, I leave the rear as an open diff so that the rear end doesn't come around when in case I do a hard trigger pull. I'm figuring since I have the Raw's drive shafts in here, I have a perfect pass I've had for a while. I might throw that on here and see how that works since I'm testing his stuff anyway. I'll make this a Raw's Schifrin or perfect pass product review thing. I don't know. We'll see. I do have one. I'll have to locate it, and we'll see about getting that perfect pass installed in here as well. So, no more yakking. I'm going to drink some more coffee, and we're going to knock this out. So, I have showed this before when I solder. You'll get these. They come from Castle. They have a little hole. Basically, you're supposed to heat up the wire, heat this up, and feed your solder through that hole. I find it easier to get the soldering gun in here, and I cut a V right here. Kind of like these, where they're notched out, just not so much. These are in half. I just put a little V so that I can get the soldering gun in there, and that way the tip will heat up the brass and heat up the wire, and I can keep feeding it, and I can see if it fills up. So normally what I do is I'll go ahead and take my little grinder, the tip of my thing's all full of aluminum from doing so much grinding, but I'll just put a little V in it so that I can get in there and just make it easier. So Castle gives you the 3 black wires and 3 ends. They don't give you the end to solder to that. They just figure you're going to solder this onto a motor, I guess. I don't know. I know that that they normally give you the other end to this. So I am going to look in the box again. Sometimes the other ends are in there. It's normally in the package. But they normally give you the other ends when you buy a combo. Now, when you buy the ESC separate, it seems like they don't give you the other ends, which kind of sucks. Castle, step up your game. We need all the pieces, not just some of them. So there we go. I'll show you. See how that filled up, and you can see the solder coming out the backside. So that's in there. That's not going anywhere. And then all I do is have a pair of pliers with some rubber band. Game changer rubber bands. That's why I say save them. So I'm going to cut a V into this one too. And we're going to continue on with this solder job. And then I use the lid to the flux. You can dip that in some flux before you stick it in here. And these are already pre-tinned from Castle. Some people cut them off. I used to cut them off and tin them myself. But I found with a good soldering gun, you can actually heat up the solder that they send you. But you should tin your soldering iron so that it makes good contact. And then I have mine maxed out, my Weller. It's a 120 amp Weller, and it's maxed over 5 just to get the heat into these. This is about the thickest wire I can really solder with this soldering gun. Up to 8mm bullets, which is fine for the hobby that I'm doing. So what I'm doing now is I can see the solder is dribbling out right there. I'm going to wait for that solder to get sucked into there, and then we're going to continue adding some more solder. There it goes. All right, so now we're on to the motor. I went ahead and uninstalled it, just the 2 bolts, slid the motor mount out, and we're gonna put some bullets on this now. So with these wires, I do trim them down a little bit, just so they'll fit into the bullet without much wire showing. We will be shrink tubing it, but we don't want a ton of wire sticking out. So I cut the V onto these as well, but these wires, because it's attached to this motor, everything on the inside starts absorbing the heat, and these are really hard to solder. So you really need a really good soldering gun to get a good connection right here. And you really got to heat up this end a lot. You'll have to leave the soldering gun here for a long time until it sucks in like it just did. I brought the camera down lower so that you guys can see the solder getting sucked in. And that sizzling in the background is me cleaning the tip on the sponge. So once that is in, I really got to clean. These bullets got glue on them. And once that happens, we're going to check the bottom and make sure there's no bubble down there. Make sure the solder got all the way around the bullet. And there we go. That's how I solder a TP motor. So we'll be back. I'm going to let this stuff cool down. Then we're going to start installing some wires. All right. Let's see here. A couple things I need to do. As you see, is loosely in here. And because I am changing the motor mount, I'm not going to be Loctiting this onto this motor. But I do need to make sure the electronics work, because I still think we are another 5 days out. Well, it shouldn't be 5 days. It should have been here already. But, so these wires I want on the top so that I get the most out of it. So that's the top. So we need to be right there somewhere. And then, so here is the spool that's going to go in the center. And here is the front differential lock that's going to go in the front of this. EMP Performance, EMP Performance. They sell both of these. Very good products. The guy makes good quality stuff. So this gear is going to go on there. Like that. I think. No, it's got to go backwards. Like that. Definitely keep extra grub screws on hand, because I go through a lot of these grub screws. You can order them through Saga. So I'm just temporarily putting that gear on there. So, got my soldering iron heating up. And then these are going to go over it like this. go. I need some more shrink tubing. This Burns-O-Matic is getting better. It's turning on at the second click instead of the first click. I mean the third click. This won't be the final wrap. I'm just putting shrink tubing on one end so I can still unplug them. And the way you do your zippy ties, I'll show you guys how I do it, because I like it a lot. So you put one around the whole thing, then you'll throw one in between these two wires, leaving the big circle loose. Leave that a little loose. Leave this one a little loose. Then we're going to start snugging them down together so it keeps the wires separated but tight. Like that. Should use my dikes. And that's how I do my wire ties. And this will be good enough for now. We will do a third one over here, but that will be after. So I do have my jumper wire for my battery connections, which we'll be soldering next to the ESC. The ESC will be mounted down right here. So let me grab some alcohol. All right. So what I'm going to do now is show you how I wire up a game changer regulator. So all I do is take my knife at the base of the positive wire, and at the base of the negative wire I cut off a little portion of the insulation, because when they solder this on, there is solder about halfway up each of these wires. So this is already pre-tinned right there. This is a quick, easy way of doing it without having to use tape to wrap these wires. You could put, before you put the battery ends on, you could put shrink tubing on it and shrink tube it. I just don't feel the need, because I'm going to the base. It's not going to move, and I'll show you how I do that. So we're going to pre-tin these wires, which is the red and the black that's on the regulator. So I'm going to pre-tin that a little bit. I'm going to pre-tin this wire a little bit on the outside. Once I do that, I take the red and I solder it. It's getting a little hot. Solder it right onto that wire. And then I'll do the same to the black wire. Just gonna pre-tin the outside of this to warm up this wire a little bit. I'm going to take our black wire. We're going to go ahead and tin this wire. They call it tinning because you're adding a little bit of shiny solder to it. Oh, really having a hard time here. I usually try to keep the wire hot while I'm doing this. So I'm applying pressure. Need some more solder. Let it cool a minute. Just like that. Now both of them are attached. And I'm going to take a zip tie. I only need a small zip tie. And I am going to attach the wire and cover and this is pretty much how you put a cap pack. You solder a cap pack in the same spot. As low to the base as possible is best. So I do it right at the base of it with these. The amp draw of this will never get hot enough to desolder itself. If it does, then there's a short somewhere. Now once that's done, I am going to zip tie these two wires together. So it's nice and clean and doesn't get in the way of the front tire from blowing, because when this comes off, you don't want anything in the way that can get ripped out when a tire lets go. So be mindful of that. So I put my battery ends on. Here's my jumper. The flat side of the connector is the positive. The round side of the connector is the negative. So negative to positive. This will go negative to positive. Positive has the little square. So the little square. So positive to negative. And then this is going to basically, I shrink tube this just to keep it clean so it's not flopping the connectors around. It holds the connectors together so that they don't spread apart. It's basically going to lay right here, put my batteries in here, plug my batteries right into it. Because remember, we're going to double stack them. So one plug here, one plug there. The connectors will probably be on this end, so I can plug and plug, and this will lay right across here. So that's it for the electrical. It's all soldered together now. The only other soldering I have to do is solder up some new leads to the batteries. But as far as the RC, it's all done being soldered. We'll take our ESC wiring. I'm going to plumb it into the receiver box along with the steering wire that's in here. I still have to change out the receiver to my Futaba receiver, and then change this one antenna wire, or not even the wire. And then that's it. So plug the steering in, plug the receiver in, take the programming wire, program up this ESC, and we're done. And then, of course, install back the upper brace, which I have a Basher Queen one coming, so I'm waiting for that. These wires will all go underneath like that. So everything's out of the way, everything's away from the drive shaft, and that's it. So that should complete this build series. I just wanted to show you how I wire up the regulator. The small end will plug right into your fans, power and ground. So the only thing you have to do is solder a ground, solder a power, and your regulator is working. Now your fans don't need another battery to run. There we go, guys. And as you saw, we got rid of the on and off switch, and then these are anti-spark connectors, so I won't get that big pop and burning the ends when I'm plugging them in. And there we go. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. That's how I build up a car. Now I will have some more videos on this. This is the 5-part series. I wanted to show you guys how basically I build a speed car from start to finish with electronics and everything, especially soldering it. And I still have some winglets to put on this. I still have a motor mount that's coming. I still have an upper brace that's coming, but all the electronics are done and the build is pretty much complete, and I can run it like this until my carbon fiber parts come in, which is my upper bracket, my front lip. I have some carbon fiber pieces coming for the back from Basher Queen, and then I'm gonna do up my batteries, and we're gonna get out and test this thing. So, and then I still have to put my holes in the body. I peeled it, which was a mistake, because I had marked it on the outside on where to put my holes, and was tired after doing all the speckles and all that stuff. I ended up peeling it before I punched the holes in the body, which was a mistake. So now I'm going to have to pull the front apart, pull the back apart, pull these out, mark it from the bottom on centered in the body. So, I mean, if you guys like, I can show you how I'll punch holes in a body that is already painted. It's a little bit more time consuming, a little bit harder to do, but there we go, guys. Everything's wired up, and this build is complete until we get more parts, because I am out of parts. So, like, comment, subscribe. We will see you guys on my next video. Thanks for watching.